Hello, this is the final part of Make a Game with No Experience, part 25. And that's not necessarily to say I'll never do another tutorial thing, but I want this series to kind of come to a proper conclusion. We've finished our game, we've even made a tutorial, all that's left now is to release it. And that's what this episode is going to be about, and then a little bit about kind of future goals, or what things to bear in mind when you're deciding what project to work on next, or maybe if you're in the middle of one right now, whether you should carry on working on it, whether you should how to gauge your expectations for it, that kind of thing. All the stuff that comes with finishing a game, or getting close to finishing a game, or even thinking about it, that might not be obvious. So the first thing we should do, we don't have much left to do on the technical side, we just should make this, turn this from a bunch of source code that's in our development environment into an application that other people can download and play. And for that, there's this box called target up here, and I think by default it'll be on this version. Actually, we're using the non-Steam version, so it isn't, but in the Steam version I think that defaults to Steam Workshop, so make sure if you're building it for Windows, change it to Windows. I've never successfully built a game to OS X from GameMaker. It's possible apparently, but you have to like connect you have to run it on a PC, on a Windows PC, and then connect the Windows PC to a Mac and build it that way. I have both those ingredients, but I haven't got it to work yet. Windows is probably what you want. Actually, the only other thing to mention here, I don't think you have it if you're using the free version, but these YYC ones, that stands for Yo-Yo Compiler, and that is another way of compiling your game, turning it into a finished product, that will make it run faster. So it's a good thing, but you do need to set up like a special Microsoft SDK and stuff, and it's a little bit technical. It used to work for me and now it doesn't. I need to look into whether I can fix that. What else was I going to say about that? Oh yeah, you probably don't need it, because if a game's something like mine, it's not that demanding, and so look into that on your own if you like. So once you've selected the right platform, you just go to File, Create Application. We're going to put it in my heat signature folder, I think. Yeah. Make a Game with No Experience will be the name of the executable, that's fine. Something to bear in mind is the name of your project up here in the top left. That will be shown to the player as they install, and possibly in like the window title and stuff, and not the file name you type here. Because I used to sometimes like get a build ready for a show or something and say like IGF build, and forget that the project I was working on was actually like the project title was like indicate build or something, and then that would pop up to them when they see it. Okay, let's just call it that though. Make a Game with No Experience. Oh, is that the name of our game? I actually don't know what our game is called. It's called No XP, isn't it? Yeah. Okay, maybe I'll rename it. Maybe I should rename the whole project. Okay, that doesn't matter. But you know what you need to know to rename it, which is going to rename the project file, I think. Maybe there's a way to do it without renaming the project file, but I don't know what it is. Okay, we have made a project. Let's just test it before we do anything else with it. Here it is. And this is, so it's an installer, it's not going to run straight away, it will install to a certain folder. And I guess we're making people agree to the GameMaker license agreement. And leave all those things as default. For some bizarre reason, look at that default folder. Users pencil. Why would I put it in there? That's not where programs go. Okay, I'm going to put it in there because it's easier. But I wonder if you can change the default install directory. I'd definitely like to. Should go in program files. Okay, it should run automatically. Hooray! It does. We made a game. Ooh, I hope it loaded that level because I've still got a save file somewhere. Because your save files are not stored in the game folder, they're stored in like a Windows folder. They'll be universal across all versions of the game, which is something to bear in mind. If I made a version of this that was read in the save file differently, it would still be trying reading in the old. It would still be trying reading in. It would still try to read in the save file from the old version. And likewise, this build that I've just created is looking at the same save file that I had when I was working on it in GameMaker. But that worked. We've got actually what's 3 megabytes. That's the sum total of our. I've been working on it since January, technically. Obviously, not very intensely, but Yeah, our 7 months of work has amounted to 3 megabytes. So now we've got to distribute it, we've got to give it to people. You can just email it to friends and stuff. If you have a web space of your own, you can host it there. But as a sort of good catch-all solution for the kind of distribution you might want at this stage with your first project, like a test, a prototype or something you've made just to follow this tutorial, I'm going to suggest itch.io, which I've actually never used before. So this is a new experience for me. But I do have an account. This is what it looks like. It's itch.io, and if you don't have an account, you should create one. And when you do, it'll ask you something like, is it going to let me go to my settings? Yeah. It'll probably present you with this account type. Do you want to play and download games or develop and upload games? And you check both, obviously. If it doesn't show that when you sign up, then go to your settings page here and set it there. All the stuff about who you are on your profile and things, you can fill that out. I haven't. And then how do we do this? I think only after you've checked the developing and uploading games do you get options like this dashboard, which I think is where you actually publish something. And I am a developer. I'm going to upload my first game. And I don't have payment configured. So let's actually do that first, because this is, that makes sense, we should set up payment first. I am not going to sell this game, but I will explain as much as I can about how you should. And a very important thing to say up front is that if you're going to take people's money for something, this is a serious undertaking, and the laws will be different in different countries, but there will almost certainly be laws about it in your country. The government will want to know about it, and they'll want to tax you. And so it's easy as like a hobbyist when you don't think much of your own project and you just think, it's just a thing I'm throwing out there, to think that the receiving the money part of it is also just, I'm just getting some money, it's fine. But I would advise talking to an accountant. For God's sake, don't take anything I say seriously. You should talk to an accountant, and that sounds like a sort of big serious thing that you'd need lots of money for. You actually don't, at least I didn't here in England. Everyone I've spoken to loads of accountants over the years. I do have one that I use now and pay, but almost all accountants will be fine with you just contacting them and saying, hey, look, I'm about to start selling something. Here's my situation. Can I... what I did was I just looked up all the local accountants here in Bath and just went in for a chat with each one of them. And I wanted to see who the best one was to go with, but also they gave me pretty much all the advice I needed right then and there. Like, it's only because I wanted to set up a company and have ongoing things going on that I actually hired an accountant. But so even if you can't afford an accountant, you can go and see an accountant, and they'll be happy to give you some free advice on what... they'll just tell you what you need to know. So they might say, oh no, it's absolutely fine, just go ahead and do it. Or they might say, no, you need to fill in this form, or they might say, whatever. But yeah, don't listen to me. This is... itch.io are mad. They're an insane organisation run by a madman. And so for a long time, they didn't take any money at all from the transactions that went through them. And running an actual online shop is a non-trivial undertaking, and must have been costing them some money, but they weren't taking any. Now they do take some, but you get to choose what the split is. So you get to, like most places, as they say here, take 30% of the money that people pay for the game. So if they charge $10 for a game, people pay $10. The seller usually takes $3 of that and gives you $7. On itch.io you can customize it, and the default is 10%, which is very generous anyway. And this bit is kind of critical. So particularly if you're in the EU, these two are the difference between being legally the seller of the game, or just being the recipient of some revenue. And the latter is much, much better. So in a similar vein, selling stuff, actually being the organisation that sells something directly to a customer, comes with, at least in England, a bunch of hassle and legal requirements that you have to obey very strictly, and so you don't want to do it if you can possibly avoid it. So click collected. In fact, you can just see, look at all these horrible options that you have to fill in. If you click collected by itch.io, paid later, they all disappear, because itch.io handles everything. So if you went with direct to you have to set up things like what currency you want to charge, whether you add VAT, plug in PayPal and Stripe, and these are the payment methods that the customer will use, and then itch.io will kind of hook them up to you, so it goes through PayPal to you. And that means people can only pay with the payment methods that you personally support. Whereas if you select Itch.io to do it, they can accept all payment methods and all currencies, and they handle the VAT. And the VAT thing is a huge deal if you're in the EU. I don't think you have to bother about it if you're in the US, but there's just a nightmare of paperwork to be done because everyone has to pay the correct VAT rate for the country they're in, which are all different. So you have to know their country and manually adjust every single transaction. Get Itch.io to do it for you. And if you're releasing it on Steam or sell it through Humble Store, that's the same thing. They are vendors and they are legally the person actually selling the thing, and so they have to obey a whole load of bullshit laws that you don't want any part of. So if you possibly can, just sell your game through someone and let them handle all that stuff. So if I save that, okay, the other thing you need to set up, if I was going to take money, go to the payouts page here, and then I think it looks like, unless I'm misunderstanding, it looks like the only way to get paid is through PayPal. So if you have a PayPal account, you plug it in here. And again, although Itch.io are handling all the really difficult law stuff, if you're making money, you probably need to tell the government about it. You probably need to be reporting that income and paying tax on it. Probably. But talk to an accountant. So I think that's all for that. And now, to set up the game, I've got no XP here. Project URL, that's fine. Short description. An example, a game made for a tutorial. I'm not going to try and market this damn thing. I'm not going to try and make it sound any more exciting than it is. Classification, it's a game, and it's a downloadable game. Release status, I think I'm going to call it released. So we could say it's in development, we could say it's prototype. It is. Prototype would set people's expectations probably closer to what it is. Maybe we should call it prototype. Yeah. And now I am probably going to disable all payments because I don't want to take anyone's money for this. Excuse me. And I haven't plugged in any payment methods, which you would think would prevent me from making any money, but I suspect they probably can still pay me money if I don't actively disable it, because Itch.io has like a sort of kitty, I think, that they keep for you, that the money goes into there, and then when you want to get a payout, that's when you collect from it. So if you never enter a payment method, I think they might still be able to collect money on your behalf, and I want to avoid that. But I will just say, for pricing, I think with your first thing that you're releasing, if it's on the similar scale to what I'm releasing, it is a good idea to make it free. So maybe I wonder if we have time to look into this. Yeah, maybe we will. The thing you're probably going to face, if you're not well known already and you haven't previously made a game, you're going to face a giant wall of apathy from the world. And that's going to be a difficult wall to break through. And in particular, basically you have to fight that apathy to get people to give a shit enough to try your game. And that's a difficult fight, and you're going to have to make cool videos of it and or really sell the concept in some very compelling way. That's a difficult task in itself. And if your game is free, then the apathy wall you have to get over is like this high, because you're only trying to persuade someone to click a link and download a thing and just try it out. You really have to persuade them that you're probably not giving them the virus. But if it costs even like $1, the apathy wall goes from that to like because now they've got to enter their credit card details probably, or if they don't have an account they've got to create one, and it's a huge pain in the ass. And that, unfortunately, that barrier to entry is right up front. They can't get to your game and ever find out whether it's any good at all unless they get through this paywall. And so I would recommend, obviously it varies for every project and it's totally up to you, but I would recommend setting the minimum price to 0, and people can still tip you then if they want to. And what I would do is put a link in the game to take people back to your Itch.io page that says something like leave a tip if you want, or I don't know. You can phrase it more tastefully than that. You obviously don't want like calls to spend money to be too prominent in the game itself, but if it's in some kind of outer shell menu or whatever, I personally don't find that distasteful. Like, tip the developers. That's a nice thing to say. And yeah, I think I might show you how to do that, but we'll finish going through this form first. But yeah, in general, that's just my philosophy, is I think if you know that part of the challenge is going to be persuading people to give a shit, it's much easier if they don't have to give a shit to the point that they'll pay you money without ever having played your game. Obviously you can do a free demo. I don't know what Itch.io's handling for that is. It looks to me like there's just a game, and if you want to make a demo you'd have to upload that as a separate game, and that's a little bit awkward. Steam's handling of demos is not good either. They come up as a separate app, and the link to them is very buried, it's very poorly handled, and there's also no really good way to kind of port people over from the demo to like get to once they finish playing a demo to seamlessly push them over to the store page for the full thing. At least Steam doesn't help you with that. With Gunpoint's demo, I did like a sort of a special conversation at the end where you during a conversation you're suddenly given the option to like buy the game instead of replying to the person, and that clicking that link takes you out of the game and to the Steam store page, and that was the best I could do, which is cheap and shitty. But it's something to think about. Like, if I think you should always give people a way to play your game for free before they spend any money, partly to be nice, but I actually think it's a more practical thing to do in terms of making money if you want to do that. And it's worth thinking about after they play the free version, how do they know where to go? How do they get there? Is it easy for them to get there? And that kind of stuff. Description. Let's just write in. Oh yeah, sorry, I'm going to disable all payments. I did a tutorial for how to make a game in the Game Maker Studio with no experience. This is the example project I made as I showed people how to make a game. This is the example game I made as I showed people how to make a game. It's pretty weak. Genre, I kind of hate genres. It's an action game, isn't it? Tags, I'm not going to bother with that. Custom noun, so you can, if you don't consider your thing a game, it's more of an interactive experience. You could type that in here. I don't give a shit. Download and install instructions. I barely need anything there, do we? You just double click the installer and then you install it. No App Store links, no Google Play. Published. Yeah, let's just make it public. Page is public, but new purchases and downloads are not allowed. I wonder why that's for. Okay. Hopefully we get to preview it or something. I haven't uploaded the game yet, so... Oh shit, I didn't upload the game. I think I skipped over the bit where you upload the game. Okay. Well, I fucked up this game release in a big way. Where was it? I feel like I saw it somewhere. There was a... Ah, here it is. It's that button. Because it was big and pink and obvious, I missed it. Where are we going? Heat signature builds. It was in here, wasn't it? So maybe we should have done the web thing first, the web links thing first, because then it would actually be in here. But hopefully it's pretty easy. .data build. That is a Windows build. And that's it. Alright. That wasn't so bad. For a split second there, our game was released with no file. Which is, I mean, a point I'll make later at great length, I've already made a few times, is it's worth going through the whole process once, just so you know all the bits to it, and so that the time when you fuck up actually including a file with your game release is a shitty test project and not your big thing. Okay, so can we see it now? Presumably I can upload like screenshots and stuff. I'm not going to right now, but there must be a way to do that, right? Oh yeah, cover image. Okay, we won't do that, but there it is. So that's releasing your game, really. Let's go and do the web links thing, because that should be easy enough. We're just going to edit our menu object and draw GUI. We've already got a really nice way of making buttons. So between new game and quit, you could say something like, should we try tip the developer? I don't want that in my game. Okay, I'll tell you to do something like that, but if you want to. But I personally am going to do like, let's just say website. All I'm trying to teach you is how to make a website link. And also, I've forgotten how to make a website link, so we're going to look it up. This is top quality tutorial stuff. If I just search for website, that should get something right. URL open, that sounds promising. URL open. Great. I think that's actually changed since I last did it, so that's good. And now our store page for Itch.io is just that. Going to paste that in. Got to put it in speech marks though, otherwise it tries to read its code. Gosh, could it be that easy? Oh, the other thing you could do is you might want the game to quit as well. It's up to you really. I'm going to not make the game quit because if you're in the middle of a level you might click it not realising it's going to quit the game. Yeah, so I probably won't update the build to include this, the live build, because I don't care whether people go to the website or not, but you might. It'd be quite reasonable if you did. What am I doing? Okay, well, there's an issue with that. Let's reduce some of the spacing, I think. That's all 30 right now, let's make it like 25. The top really 0. Seems like it's quite low down to me. Why would it be 0? Does this thing reduce the... No. Maybe we should start with y being minus something then. Minus 25, just to get it on screen. Yeah, there's just like huge gaps. Let's see if that fits. It won't work at every resolution, but if it works at 1280 by 720, you're pretty safe. That's good enough for government work. Oh, I should have tested clicking it. There we go. That's pretty neat. So that could be a link to tip the developer. It could be, the other way you could do it is have a free version and a full version, and have the free version have a button that takes people to the site where you can buy the full version and explains to them what they get for doing that. Basically shareware. That was a good model. I don't know why we ever left that behind. Okay, so I think that's everything, isn't it? We've gone all the way to actually releasing a game. I've just released a game just now. It's got the worst page in the world, but there it is. So the other thing I wanted to talk about just quickly was what goals to aim for. These are just my recommendations. They're not, certainly won't apply to everyone, and you know, I don't even know what you want to get out of making games. But if you want to do something similar to what I did, here's what I wish I did. I didn't do this. What I did was the first project I made. I just kept working on that, and it kind of evolved into something that was that I felt was good enough to sell. And I just got really lucky. And the more I work in games, the more things I work on, the more I realised how lucky I was that the concept I picked for Gunpoint, such as it was, as it kind of evolved, was just very doable. It's actually a pretty, don't tell past Tom this, but it was a pretty easy game to make. Seemed really hard at the time, but now I try and make anything else, I realise, oh no, Gunpoint was unusually easy to make, and just very contained in scope. It was pretty simple to, like, it was pretty early on that all of the basic mechanics were in there and worked and were fun, and it was difficult to design puzzles around them, but I don't know, it's pretty well controlled scope. And I really, when I started making it, when I decided what the scope would be and changed my mind on that, I didn't have the information I needed to make that decision intelligently. It was just luck that I happened to pick something that turned out to be doable. So I would recommend doing what you hopefully, if you've gone through all the episodes and actually followed them, have already done, which is make something. Just make one thing and finish it. That's the vital thing. So I say here, it can be tiny and crap, but you can't be smart about what you decide to make until you've been through the whole process at least once. Because there are lots of little bits to it that you might not think about. And you know, now that we've uploaded it, there is actually another step of like telling people about it. And I don't really have any good advice on that. Like maybe tweet about it. I don't know. then yeah, so I think you should be your first priority, and if you haven't already done that, then just work towards that. And if you started following this tutorial, I don't know why you'd be watching this, but if you started it and then like petered out, and now you're starting on a new project that's more ambitious, it's up to you which one of those things you finish, but your first priority should be to finish one thing, and don't worry about whether it's good. Don't worry whether it's substantial. Don't worry about whether it's good enough. And I tried to do that with this tutorial project. There were loads of different things actually towards the end where I started to think, it would be really good if we just had this other weapon, or if these two things interacted in this other way, actually we could have done a scoring system, and there should be some kind of end. And all those things are true, those would make the game better, I'm sure, but the priority was fucking finish something, get it out there. And I wanted to keep this tutorial, the series, short. So that I'm pretty sure, it's 25 episodes, they're about 45 minutes each, so we should be under 20 hours, I think. And a game jam is where you make a game in 2 days, and that always seems incredibly ambitious to, like, how the hell can you make anything in 2 days? But you can spend 20 hours work over 2 days quite comfortably. That's 10 hours a day. That's not brutal. And if you followed this, you probably didn't take 20 hours to do it. You probably took more than that, because it's difficult to follow along in real time, I imagine. But the point is, you have all that knowledge now. You know how to do all those things. So next time you do them, you can do them in 20 hours, I'm sure, probably less. So that should be your first goal, I think. And you'll learn so much from doing that. Hopefully you already have, if you've just done everything. Goal number 2, if you haven't already read ahead, is try to make something you like. So your first thing might, by fluke, turn out to be good enough that you like it and want to carry on working on it, but it might not. And if it doesn't, then I suggest just prototyping something new, and with every new idea you try, if you don't have any ideas, you can still just start coding. You could just take your existing game and just break it, just take something out of it. Or just like say, let's have this enemy spawn 300 times a second, or let's have this thing be 10 times as large as it currently is, or let's add gravity but it all goes to the left. And you can just try random things, and you'll be amazed how often something really interesting comes up. Like, it's not that common for it to be, oh, this could totally be the foundation of a massive new game. But it's very common to see, oh, that's not good, but if I did this to it, that could be cool. So prototyping is actually really easy, and having ideas is quite easy, but even if you don't have ideas, you can still prototype. And I suggest not investing too much in one prototype, in one game, until you, if you can't get to the point where the core of the game is playable. Once you hit upon something that you think, I'd like a game about this, I'd like a game where you can do this, I'd like a game that features this. I guess I'm really focusing on mechanics oriented games, like games that showcase a new mechanic, which is what I try and do, because that's the kind of stuff I get excited about. This advice probably doesn't apply very well to narrative games, but if you are making a mechanics-driven game, then getting to that moment when you can play it, when you can play the important thing. In Gunpoint's case, that was the crosslink. In Heat Signature's case, that was going inside ships and taking out the crew. Until that works, you don't know whether this is going to be a good game, and every minute you spend on it could be wasted. It could be a total waste of time. You might be going down a what's the phrase? Blind alley? Dead end? Garden path? A blind dead garden path you could be going down, and that's just worth having in your mind. It's okay, like, to spend a significant amount of time, but just bear in mind that it could all be a waste of time until you know whether that core game works. And there are very high-profile cases of very, very talented, brilliant people doing exactly that, just like spending years and years on something, and then at the end of it realizing, oh, now that the core game is in, it just doesn't work, it just isn't fun. The whole thing's scrapped. And that's a tragedy, really, if that truly is wasted. So just bear that in mind. Number 3 is find out if other people like it. I thought about making number 3 make something that other people like, because that's my objective. I want to make something that I like and other people like. But that might not be yours. But it is, even if you don't give a shit what other people think, you should find out what other people think, because it's really, really relevant to what's going to happen down the line. It's really relevant to what this project is. What is it? Is it the start of a new career for you? Or is it a fun little hobby that once you're done with it, you will just go back to whatever else you were doing in your spare time beforehand? And showing it to other people will tell you that, because if you show it to a bunch of people and nobody has any good reaction to it. I guess you'd have to show it to a lot of people to be really sure, but it's not a good sign, and it might be... Sometimes people can see flaws in something that you can't, and it'll hit them down the line. Other times it's just something that caters to your tastes and doesn't cater to many people's tastes. Sometimes it won't be of interest to a lot of people, but there will be a really niche audience out there. Like if you're making like a really particular kind of game that that maybe already does exist and already does have a niche audience, then obviously having 20 randomly selected people will tell you they're not interested in it might not mean that much because they're not the target audience. That's just incredibly obvious. I don't know why I even said that. But yeah, it's worth knowing whether this is going to be something that you will be able to get other people to play, and whether they want to give you money for it, because that's something that, you know, I didn't know that with Gunpoint. I had to just ask at some point. I had enough people say, you should charge money for this, that I asked on my blog, should I charge money for it? And everyone said, yeah. So I did. And that's my life story. So yeah, you'll learn a lot by showing it to people. And if other people don't like it but you do, and you want to carry on working on it, that's fine. But it's really good to know early on, this is not going to change my life, probably. Unless it's, you know, an emotional work of that profundity that you will change your own life by creating it, even if no one else likes it. Which maybe that's a thing people do, I don't know. Goal number 4, finish that thing, whatever that is. Now that you pick something that's worthwhile, that's actually good, then finish that, but know that it's going to be a big job probably. If it's anything like anything I've ever worked on, actually making something that's kind of substantial enough to be worthwhile, and then finishing it the way you did with your tiny project is going to be an exponentially bigger task than finishing a tiny thing. And the thing I say here is, it's okay to abandon it if it's too hard, if it's taking too long, you're not enjoying it, and particularly if you just don't think the concept really works, and if other people are telling you that as well, or if you're just not getting the feedback you want from other people. But I don't recommend abandoning it just because you had a new idea. Like, if your current idea is good and then you have a better idea, depends on the difference, of course, but I generally think that's just going to keep happening. That's happened to me 100 times since Gunpoint, and I haven't made 100 games, and I couldn't have made 100 games, and I've talked about this before, but like during Gunpoint I had an idea for an RTS that would be, to me it seemed like this new idea, the RTS, was so simple to make and just kind of would click together really quickly and just be so exciting and so kind of more in tune with the kind of generative nature of the types of things I was interested in. I thought, this Gunpoint thing's just going nowhere, I've got to do this RTS. And then I just kept thinking, if I do that RTS, 3 months' time, I'm going to have an idea for an RPG. And then the RTS is going to look like worthless shit compared to this awesome RPG I could be making. And by the time I finished Gunpoint, obviously Gunpoint turned out well, by all the metrics that I care about. And the RTS thing actually didn't even end up being my next project by the time I finished Gunpoint. I'm still interested in it, I'd still like to make it, but I just learned loads from making Gunpoint and from people's reaction to it too, and I found that Gunpoint had a kind of human element that this RTS thing didn't have at all. And watching people play Gunpoint and laugh out loud was such a rewarding experience and just made me feel so good about it that I realised no one's going to play my fucking RTS and laugh out loud. There's nothing funny about it. So, is that it? I think that might be it. That might be the end of this entire series, and hopefully, if you got this far, I mean, the thing I always say is it's not easy to make a game, but it's easy to find out whether you should, because once you start, it'll be pretty obvious. And I think if you made it through 25 episodes of this, you probably found that it was something you're interested in, right? I hope so. But I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you'll keep showing me things that you've made if you started this tutorial series, because it's been absolutely fantastic to see what other people have made. I'm starting to think that it might end up leading to more good games than me actually working on games does. Maybe this is a more efficient way to make games, just tell other people how to do it. But thanks so much for watching.